I want to discuss the end of an era as WWE on Fox has come to an end. Now, of course, WWE on Fox made its debut on October 4th, 2019, and there was real hype around the WWE premiering on Fox. Fox had spent a year and a half promoting the addition of Friday Night SmackDown. Fox wanted to make it feel like a real sport. And again, 8 o'clock to 10 p.m. Eastern Time every Friday night was the biggest chunk of programming at the time that Fox had given before. It was just, a bunch of kitchen reruns and some of the animation reruns they had. This was the first time they had a real true block of programming 52 weeks a year in that time slot. And they had Thursday Night Football at the time. Then Friday Night SmackDown, then obviously Saturday College Football, Sunday NFL. It was a real marketing tactic for the corporation. And of course, we all know the infamous ending of this first episode, Brock Lesnar, Kofi Kingston, Brock Lesnar winning the WWE Championship in approximately 10 seconds. Cain Velasquez comes out again. This was all part of Vince McMahon, WWE's Fox idea to make it a real sport. We have these two former UFC fighters who would, of course, eventually fight in a ridiculous match at Crown Jewel that was pretty much over in 5 minutes, where Brock Lesnar would defeat Cain Velasquez. Kofi Kingston arguably would never recover. He never even got a rematch for the WWE Championship. The closest thing he came to was getting eliminated quickly by Brock Lesnar in the 2020 Royal Rumble. And to make this all a moot point, Brock Lesnar would eventually quit SmackDown in a couple weeks. He'd move over to Monday Night Raw, which was the brand he was drafted on in the draft. And of course, then ultimately, the late great Fiend Bray Wyatt would win the Universal Championship, which was on Raw at the time from Seth Rollins at Crown Jewel. And that's how SmackDown would get its major world championship back, was the Fiend Bray Wyatt. But this early edition of Friday Night SmackDown was again WWE trying to do something different. On the first episode, you also add Kevin Owens versus Shane McMahon in that ladder match, which, my God, looking back at it now and where we are currently in 2024 WWE, can you believe that we kind of accepted this booking? We knew it was bad, but we tried to, give excuses for it, try to enjoy it. There were some portions, but when Shane McMahon was literally dominating the Friday Night SmackDown roster in much of 2019, excuse me, because Vince McMahon ended up admitting in the ring that we needed a wild card rule. Like, what was happening in WWE? It's giving me insane flashbacks right out of 2019. Then, of course, I think, SmackDown kind of went into a wall as we go into January, February of 2020. This was at the time where Roman Reigns and the Usos were not yet the bloodline, but they were feuding with the likes of Dolph Ziggler, Robert Roode, and Baron Corbin. And, Roman Reigns got dog food poured on him, which was, of course, real dog food because, the owner and runner of the company of creative at the time was named Vincent Kennedy McMahon. Shout out to that Netflix documentary that is coming September 25th. Cannot wait for that on Netflix to expose Mr. McMahon. As the documentary says, 6 parts, 1 hour long. Been waiting for that documentary for 3 freaking years. Um, but of course, we all know what happened in February in Saudi Arabia. Goldberg defeats the Fiend Bray Wyatt, and I tried to defend it at the time. I remember being on radio at the time. My friends were all pissed off about it, and I understood they wanted to do Goldberg versus Roman Reigns for the championship. A lot of people preferred Cena and the Fiend for the championship. But I really thought, at the beginning of the Fiend's run, you kind of booked him in a corner when he won the championship. The Hell in a Cell match. Obviously, you don't want the Fiend to take a loss, but they wanted Seth Rollins to retain the championship. Looking back at it, you should have just gave the Fiend the title in Hell in a Cell and had the rematch, at Crown Jewel in Saudi. Like, what the hell? Um, yeah, that was a dark time in WWE. But then, of course, we had the COVID era, which, was what it was to start. Of course, Friday Night SmackDown on Fox was the first show of the PC era. It was also the first show of the Thunderdome era. And, this happened 3 days after my foundation was launched because I was, a student in college at the time. And I had just got home from class that day. And there wasn't a ton of talk about the university shutting down, and then the university shuts down and we all have to get out of there, and our world was crazy. And the NBA had stopped their season and March Madness was canceled. And do y'all remember this 4 years ago? Like, it feels like it happened 20 years ago, but yet it was, less than a half decade ago. So I think obviously, and I've talked about this, WWE, in my opinion, did what they could during those early PC days of the pandemic era. And for some reason, maybe it's because, again, there was no, baseball to start the season, there was no NBA, there was no Major League Baseball. Um, COVID really did change my viewing habits per se. I started getting into more shows and watching more non-sports because of course, I'm a sports guru. Obviously, I do a sports podcast, but at that time, probably 90 to 95% of what I was watching outside of the little bit of HGTV I would watch was sports related. And now I would say it's down to like 65, maybe 65%. There's a lot more shows I'm into, sitcoms, reality shows, things like that. But the WWE, at least during the COVID era, I think, again, because there was no sports on, really I got to go into the nuance of WWE, the backstage part of the business, the psychology of the business, and really get back into WWE. I was, trying to get into AEW at the time, and they were hot, obviously, new company right out of the gate. Not like what they are now, and I tried telling you people this, but I digress. We had, of course, Goldberg, or excuse me, Roman Reigns pulling out of WrestleMania 36, which led us to the Braun Strowman Championship reign, which led us to the different versions of Bray Wyatt and Braun Strowman, that rivalry over the summer. You had the Swamp match at Extreme Rules, of course. You had the Firefly Funhouse version at Money in the Bank. This was also the time that you had Otis as the Money in the Bank men's briefcase holder trying to chase after Mandy Rose. Yes, this is just 2020 in WWE, folks. In between there, you had Braun Strowman in a 2-on-1 handicap match for the Universal Championship against John Morrison and The Miz. Again, this was 2020 WWE. And then for the last 4 years, what has defined the Friday Night SmackDown era on Fox was obviously SummerSlam, August 23rd, 2020, the return of Roman Reigns. But when he showed up with that show up and win t-shirt, we did not know if he was a face. We did not know he was a heel. 5 nights later, August 28th, 2020, Friday Night SmackDown on Fox, we found out that Paul Heyman was by his side. 2 days later, Payback, August 30th, 2020. And then obviously 1,316 days later, the greatest championship reign, I would argue, of all time, easily in the modern era, the undisputed WWE Universal Heavyweight Champion. First the Universal Championship, then the WWE Championship, then the undisputed Universal Championship. Then at the table, the Tribal Chief. From all the rivalries, right? From Jey Uso to Kevin Owens to Daniel Bryan and Edge to Cesaro. And by the way, in between there, who can never forget the match with Daniel Bryan? Daniel Bryan's last match on that Friday Night SmackDown. To Rey Mysterio, or remember they did a Hell in a Cell match on SmackDown, which was the first in forever. Um, you know, to back at it again with Edge at Money in the Bank, to John Cena at SummerSlam, to the Demon Finn Balor at Extreme Rules, and I could go on and on and on. Who could ever forget the Riddle match he had, the one match during that run that he didn't have a ton of interference on that June 17, 2022 era of Friday Night SmackDown. And after WrestleMania 37, We, of course, had the introduction of Pat McAfee to commentary as Corey Graves moved over to Monday Night Raw, and it's ironic now that Michael Cole and Corey Graves are back together. They called the last Friday Night SmackDown on Fox together, in 2024, along with the first in 2019. And again, way back when Cole, Graves, and Renee Young used to commentate on Monday Night Raw. That feels so long ago. Um, but the WB on Fox era, to me, the introduction of Pat McAfee brought so much life to the product, brought, I think, Michael Cole's love back to the product. And in my opinion, they've been a better commentary duo during these past 3 years on and off run that they've had. I think they've been better in this time than JR and King were in their prime. I know a few people feel that sentiment. A few people still feel like JR and Kings were better. You can debate that in the comment section below. But again, Roman Reigns' title reign really defined the last 4 years of SmackDown. You also had some great rivalries. Of course, the Edge Seth Rollins moment where Seth Rollins invades Edge's house comes off the top of my mind. You had the Intercontinental Championship run of course, the Ring General Gunther. You also had the record-breaking Undisputed Tag Team Championship run of the Usos and everything that went on with the bloodline of Sami Uso. And again, just really good, compelling television from WWE. It was definitely a rocky start. SmackDown and Fox took a while to find their fitting. I think at times there was sort of backstage politics. Um, with who Fox wanted on their roster and who Fox wanted as champions. And I think everything kind of got smoothed over since Triple H settled in creative, of course, in July of 2022, and both Fox and USA Network both have publicly said they have enjoyed, obviously, Triple H's booking over Vince McMahon. And like Michael Cole and Corey Graves said last night when they were thanking Fox for the 5 years of broadcast, can't believe it's been 5 years. And the fact that WWE, not only gave Fox record ratings for that time slot, but also record ratings for Friday Night SmackDown. There's been a lot of debate that, I know the ad numbers on the Fox side were not there for wrestling, and Fox said they don't really need it. And I know that there's that side of it. I also know that Fox, had expectations for WWE to have about 3 million views. And outside of that first episode, I don't know if they ever got to 3 million views. I think the closest was maybe like 2.8, 2.9 in early 2020. And then a couple of those episodes, last year in the sort of height of the bloodline where it was the Sami Zayn turn and reunited with Kevin Owens, and then the Jey Uso turn in a main event Jey Uso. So there was a lot. We also had, and I know I'm going out of order, so I apologize again. There's no script here. I'm just rambling, just off the top of my head. Some of the moments on Fox that were memorable for me. Obviously, the return of the fans. I mentioned that SmackDown had the first show without fans. They had the first show of the Thunderdome era. They also had the first show with fans back, and that was certainly a special show, as well as for obviously different reasons. The passing of Terry Funk to go along with the passing of Bray Wyatt. Just heartbreaking stuff. That was truly a moving episode. You had The Rock come back this last fall around this time. You had everything going on the last year with the rise of LA Knight. Yeah, that'll be defined as the Friday Night SmackDown on Fox era as well. You had everything with Rey and Dominic Mysterio going into WrestleMania 39 on the Blue brand. So Fox era, man, there was a lot of great moments. Maybe it was a bumpy in the beginning, but at the end, I think the WWE Fox partnership, maybe again, in terms of ad dollars, you could say it wasn't a success or whatever. And I think Fox, ultimately, in my opinion, if I had the choice between putting on even Big 12, college football games on a Friday night versus professional wrestling as a television company, I know what I'm going to choose, obviously, and take the bullet in, January, February, whatever, with college basketball. And then you may not have a ton of programming to put on in the summer. And we know WWE is bringing back Saturday Night's Main Event. That was announced as a part of their new deal with NBC Universal. Who knows? Maybe Fox and WWE get back in partnership down the road. Maybe there's some digital opportunities um for the two companies to work together. But in the end, the era was defined by Roman Reigns, Gunther's championship reign. Obviously, like I said, the show returning with fans, Bray Wyatt's passing tribute show. There was a lot of moments when you look back at the WWE on Fox era, and I think it was truly the best era in SmackDown history. Like that clip from the Brands World podcast? If so, make sure you go down there and hit that subscribe button. While you're down there hitting the subscribe button, make sure to also hit the notification bell so you never miss another upload. And make sure you check out all the other clips from the Brands World podcast right here on YouTube.